YouTube has an awesome community of real estate investors that are really good at breaking the numbers down and showing you really how to maximize your rental returns. However, the problem is if you're just beginning, it's often hard to understand really what's going on and the process of getting into the game. So today we're talking how to get started buying real estate. Now there's thousands of videos online, like I said, of exactly how to get the maximum of returns, but it's quite simple. Until you're playing the game, it's hard to understand the rules of the game. So today I want to talk about where to get started when it comes to buying real estate to make sure you get into the game and start seeing the benefits earlier. So real estate investing can be complicated. The loan process, the taxes, the applications, making sure you buy the right property. However, it isn't actually as daunting as what it may seem once you first start buying. So today I want to encourage you to get rid of the spreadsheets, get rid of the complications, and just focus on the simplicity. I want to show you how I bought my first property and how that led me to buy other properties, and how when you break it down to these simple little steps, you can make it easy too. So if you are looking at buying an investment property or investing in the market in general, it is tempting to look at things like stocks, Bitcoin, you might be even considering buying gold. But the problem with the other sort of investments is you're only going to be investing a little bit of money when you first start out, and even a really good return on a little bit of money still only equates to a little bit of money. The great thing with property is you can leverage a little bit of money into a lot of money, and this really maximizes your returns and uses that power of leverage to get you ahead sooner. It's easy to look at some of these big investors like Grant Cardone and looking at these $1 million deals that they're putting together, buying 50 units or big commercial properties. However, for the average Joe just starting out, it's just not obtainable. And I feel like the YouTube inspiration, a lot of cause for YouTube procrastination and not actually going on to do something with the knowledge that you are gaining watching videos. So this is where I really want to simplify it and talk about how the average Joe can get started buying in real estate. Now, I don't want to big note myself and make myself sound like someone special, because I'm not. Just an average Joe. I did buy my first property when I was 19 here in Cairns. Now, I wasn't making $1 million at 19. I was working at a bar at a local club, and I actually worked a second job driving a boat around out the reef around here. By far, I don't think I was earning more than about $45,000 per annum when I bought my first property. Now, what was this property? It wasn't a $1 million mansion. It was a $135,000 unit that I bought. It was a 1-bedroom unit, and I loved the complex. It was somewhere I could see myself living for a very long time. However, that didn't turn out to be the case. I think I lived in it for just over 12 months before my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, come along and convinced me we needed to move somewhere bigger. But that unit now, I've held on to that for about 10 years. The loan's considerably been reduced, and about 3 years ago was the first time that property was actually positively geared. It returned a positive cash flow for the first time about 3 years ago, and now does generate me income every single week. So even though it was what I'd consider a pretty shitty investment at the get-go, now after this period of time, it is something that's starting to cash flow and giving us quite a nice return. Now, why do I tell you this story of my first purchase? Because even with a bad property purchase, time does fix everything and can turn a property that is a pretty average investment into something that has great returns. So don't be afraid to go out there and start buying your first property, because time will fix things, especially if you're paying principal and interest. You really will, just by starting, be so far ahead than if you just sat on your hands for another 5-10 years. Now, if you do have a big chunk of savings, hey, go out and buy a duplex, buy a quadplex. Hey, if you've got as much as Grant Cardone, go buy 50 units. However, if you're like me and don't have a huge amount of cash saved up, it doesn't need to stop you from buying real estate. Go have a look. If your town of where you're living prices do start at $1 million, look outside of where you're living and see if you can find somewhere to invest that does have smaller and more reasonable property prices for you to get into the market. So what is step one? How do you actually get started buying real estate? Well, first I want you to throw away any spreadsheets, and I want you to go out and get a feel for the market. So how exactly do you get a feel for the market? You do this by going out and inspecting properties at open homes. if you can start going through 30, 40, 50 properties, you'll start to get a feel for what is a good buy and what isn't a good buy. And as soon as you walk into a property, you'll start to know if it's priced well or if the owners are being a little bit greedy with what they're chasing. So really start to feel, spend a good 3 to 6 months. Don't rush out and buy, and that will avoid you doing like what I did when I was 19 and buying a pretty average purchase. Really getting to know the market, you will start to find what is value and what isn't value. On this note as well, keep an eye out for what I consider grandma's house. This is the property that is structurally solid, is in really good condition, only the kitchen's purple, it's got shag wool carpets, and the walls might be green. These are such easy, cheap fixes to change over the kitchen, change the carpets, paint the walls, and this is where you can really capitalize. So do your research, get to know the market, get to feel the market. Throw away the spreadsheets and just really have a look at what's around and what you can buy. Now, what's step 2? Step 2 is to go speak to your bank or finance broker. You want to be able to understand what your borrowing power is. And on this note, don't be afraid of paying LMI. So say you're looking at buying a property worth $400,000 and you've only got a $40,000 deposit. So that's a 10% deposit. I wouldn't worry about saving up the other 10%. It might take you 2 or 3 years to save another $40,000. And in that time, you could be paying off your own loan. Only got that 10% deposit on that $400,000. Your LMI is only going to be about $7,000. By the time that's factored into the loan, paid off over 30 years, it only works out to be about $8 or $9 extra a week that you're paying. And it means you can get into the market so much sooner. Now, step 3 is what I recommend people actually buy their first home before they buy an investment property, especially if your market does have reasonable prices. Now, I want to run through an example here because there's a lot of people that will argue you're better off renting because of the flexibility if you need to move, if you have a change in job. The world's a mobile place these days. I hear all these arguments. However, I strongly believe that if you're living somewhere for longer than 12 months, to buy. Now, once again, to go back to our $400,000 example, you buy a house for $400,000, your loan's $360, give or take, that property is going to cost you about $450 a week. Say something changes and you need to move interstate, you can rent that property out. So for this example, let's say the property rents for $400 a week. So it's costing you $50 a week to hold on to. Negative cash flow. Yeah, it's not really an issue because I want to tell you why. If you're paying the loan off over 30 years, it's costing you $450 to hold. About $120 of that is actually going off the principal of the loan. So even though the property is costing you $50 a week to hold on to, you're actually making $70 a week off the rent. If you can continue to hold on to that property, like my shitty little first purchase, you will eventually move into cash flow territory, even considering principal and interest repayments. So don't be afraid if a property is going to cost you money to hold on to. Do the calculations, work out how much of the principal you're actually paying off, and you might work out that that property is actually making you money in your net position, even though it is affecting your current cash flow. Ultimately, buying a property can be a daunting experience. I get that. I understand it. Every day, my job is I sell real estate. I see the fear in people's eyes. I see people shaking when they're signing a contract. It's an exciting, it's a nerve-wracking experience. But if you follow the simple steps, get a real feel for the market, don't just work off spreadsheets, speak to your bank, work out what you can borrow. The banks won't lend you more than you can afford to repay. The banks are very strict these days. And then just go ahead and buy. Once you feel the market, you've got the finance approvals, get in there and buy sooner rather than later. The power of leveraging your money really is the benefit of property and what will help you turn a little bit of money into a lot of money in the future. So I hope this is of help. If you are looking at buying your first investment or your first home, just get out there, get a feel for the market and get into it sooner rather than later. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. We do put out a heap of content on this channel and we love bringing you new videos.